The Tale of Benny, the Brave Snail. Once upon a time, in a lush green meadow where flowers swayed in the breeze and dew sparkled like diamonds, there lived a little snail named Benny. Benny was no ordinary snail. He had the shiniest shell in the whole meadow. It glimmered in the sunlight, catching the attention of everyone around him. But Benny didn't think he was special. "I'm just a tiny snail who moves so slow. I'll never do anything grand," he often sighed. Benny's best friend, a curious firefly named Gilda, would always encourage him. "Oh, Benny," she said one starry evening, "you don't have to be big or fast to be special. Sometimes the smallest creatures can have the biggest adventures." One day, as Benny was munching on a tasty lettuce leaf, a commotion arose in the meadow. The wise old owl, Professor Hootsworth, called for a meeting. All the animals gathered under the big oak tree to hear what he had to say. "My dear friends," hooted Professor Hootsworth, "I've heard whispers of a magical flower that blooms only once every 100 years. It's said to have petals made of stardust and can grant one special wish. The flower is called the star bloom, and it grows deep in the enchanted forest." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Everyone dreamed of finding the star bloom and making a wish. But Professor Hootsworth continued, "The journey to the enchanted forest is long and filled with challenges. Only the bravest and most determined can make it." Benny's heart fluttered. What if he could find the star bloom and make a wish? He could wish to be faster or stronger, just like the other animals. But then he hesitated. "How can a little snail like me make such a journey?" he wondered aloud. Gilda hovered near him, her tiny light glowing brightly. "You can do it, Benny. You're stronger than you think, and I'll come with you." Encouraged by his friend, Benny decided to try. Early the next morning, Benny and Gilda set off on their adventure. The path to the enchanted forest was full of twists and turns, but Benny kept moving forward, one tiny step at a time. Their first challenge came at a babbling brook. The water sparkled under the sunlight, but to Benny it seemed like a mighty river. "How will we ever get across?" he fretted. "Look over there," Gilda chirped, pointing to a line of floating lily pads. Benny carefully crawled onto the first pad. It wobbled under his weight, but Gilda flew ahead, cheering him on. One pad at a time, Benny made it across. When he reached the other side, he couldn't believe it. "I did it!" he exclaimed. As they journeyed further, they encountered a dark tunnel guarded by a grumpy mole named Maximus. "Who dares enter my tunnel?" Maximus growled. Benny trembled, but Gilda whispered, "Be brave." "Mr. Maximus, sir," Benny said politely, "we're on a quest to find the star bloom. Could we please pass through your tunnel?" Maximus's eyes narrowed. "Only if you solve my riddle," he said. "What has no legs but can still run?" Benny thought hard. Then he smiled. "A river," he said. Maximus's frown turned into a grin. "Correct. You may pass." On and on they travelled, facing more challenges. At one point they had to navigate through a thorny bramble, with Gilda lighting the way while Benny carefully crawled through. Later they encountered a group of mischievous squirrels who tried to trick them into going the wrong way. But Benny's sharp memory and Gilda's quick thinking helped them stay on the right path. As night fell, they decided to rest under a towering mushroom. The stars twinkled above, and Gilda's light glowed softly. "Do you ever get scared?" Benny asked. "Sometimes," Gilda admitted. "But being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you keep going, even when you are." Benny nodded thoughtfully. The journey had been tough, but he felt stronger with each step. The next morning, they reached the Whispering Woods, a mysterious part of the forest where the trees seemed to talk. As they made their way through, they heard a rustling sound. Suddenly a family of hedgehogs appeared, blocking their path. "You can't pass here," the leader of the hedgehogs, a stern-looking fellow named Henry, declared. "These woods are dangerous." "We mean no harm," Benny said. "We're on a quest to find the star bloom." Henry tilted his head. "The star bloom, you say? Only the bravest can find it. Why should we let you pass?" Benny took a deep breath. "Because sometimes even the smallest creatures can do great things." Henry studied Benny for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, but beware of the misty hollow. It's easy to lose your way." With the hedgehog's warning in mind, Benny and Gilda pressed on. The misty hollow was filled with swirling fog that made it hard to see. Gilda's light flickered, but she stayed close to Benny. "I can't see the path," Benny whispered. "Trust your instincts," Gilda replied. "Sometimes the way forward is clearer than it seems." Slowly Benny made his way through the mist, feeling the ground beneath him. At last the fog lifted, and before them stood the heart of the enchanted forest. There, bathed in moonlight, stood the star bloom. Its petals shimmered like tiny stars, and the air around it hummed with magic. Benny inched closer, his heart pounding. "I can make my wish," he whispered. But as he gazed at the flower, he remembered all the challenges he had overcome. He had crossed a brook, faced his fears, and solved riddles. Maybe he didn't need to be faster or stronger after all. "I wish for everyone in the meadow to believe in themselves," Benny said softly. The star bloom glowed brightly, and a gentle voice echoed through the forest. "Your wish is granted, brave little snail." When Benny and Gilda returned to the meadow, they were greeted as heroes. Benny's shiny shell now seemed even brighter, reflecting the courage he had discovered within himself. And from that day on, Benny knew that being small didn't mean he couldn't do great things. As he snuggled into his leafy bed that night, Benny smiled, knowing that he was no ordinary snail. He was a little snail with a very big heart, and so Benny drifted off to sleep, dreaming of his next adventure.